So one story that has been gaining a ton of traction online in the last 24 hours has to do with whether or not there is indeed indication that whatever is next for Nintendo Switch hardware, whether that be Nintendo Switch 2, Nintendo Switch Pro, as you've seen talked about and rumored for so long, or just a clean next generation break into something entirely different, there is an interesting leak from an Nvidia employee suggesting that we may now have a glimpse of the chipset that whatever is next for Nintendo hardware will utilize. And in today's video, we have to break down all the details of the story and discuss whether or not we can expect what's next for Nintendo and new hardware anytime soon. What's up, nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, we are just discussing one massive story today, and it has to do with how Nintendo may handle the transition into whatever is next, and that is what we have to focus on kicking off this conversation, because a lot of people, boy, do they get angry online when you bring up Switch Pro. This is not necessarily any kind of indication for the long rumored and awaited better Switch revision, which would be known potentially as something like a Switch Pro or new Nintendo Switch or Super Nintendo Switch. This could very easily be the true next gen successor to Nintendo's hardware, and we don't know which one this is actually indicating and pointing towards, although I am in the camp that I am very ready for something more powerful, even in light of the OLED model coming out in 2021 with a better display. In 2023, I feel like it will be time to launch something more powerful, as the Tegra X1 processor that is sold in these model of Switches that are available today are just quite honestly showing their age. It's a chip from 2015 and sold in March of 2017 in the base model Switch, and we are still operating off of that same chip to run current day games in 2022 and as we look forward to 2023. And I do think you can argue that it is time for some kind of power boost when it comes to Nintendo Switch performance, even recently with headlines like Sonic Frontiers targeting 720p and 30 frames per second on the Nintendo Switch, and by all accounts that game does look very nice from the trailers we've seen on the Switch footage so far. It would also be fantastic to not have kind of an inclination for me to pick that up on something like a PlayStation 5, because I know it will run far better at a smoother 60 frames per second, and I can go up to 4K in resolution. Granted, that's done via some upscaling and different things. I would love to have that option for the Nintendo Switch version of that game that I could also just undock and take on the go. And I think many fans would agree with that sentiment now, even seeing trailers like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Imagine having the ability to use DLSS to up-res that fantastic project and look at a Zelda game in a 4K resolution and have a smooth 60 frames per second experience, as well as being able to take it on the go. Obviously, you're not going to get those kind of resolution and frame rate in portable play, but while docked, it would be a fantastic choice to have. And even if Nintendo charges a more premium price for whatever is next or some kind of revision, I think that path makes a ton of sense. However, with how long the Switch has been sold on the market now, we could very well be talking about a couple more years, and we're just going to wait with the model of Switches that we have right now. Maybe more special edition Switch OLEDs that we've seen recently for games like Splatoon 3, as well as Pokemon Scarlet and Violet upcoming, and maybe Zelda Tears of the Kingdom gets its own special edition OLED, and that's really all we're going to be talking about for the end of this current generation. And we're a year and a half, 2 years out from Nintendo just revealing the true successor to the Switch, which hopefully will be backwards compatible with the fantastic library of games that are on the Switch today. Now, the reason this story is in the news so heavily right now is because of an interesting leak from an Nvidia employee that actually spots the confirmation of something known as the Tegra 239, an SoC very likely to be tied to something like a Nintendo Switch 2, whether that be the successor or just a Pro revision. That is all up for debate right now, and you guys can have that debate in the comments down below, but you do have to look at what is being claimed here, and we have to quickly read through this Reddit post that does summarize it, that has been talked about a lot, where it says, comment by Nvidia employee confirms existence of Tegra 239, the SoC likely to be used on the Nintendo Switch 2. An Nvidia employee has confirmed the existence of the Tegra 239 chip, which has been rumored since 2021 as being developed for the next generation Nintendo Switch. His comment, which can be accessed at linux.org and states, adding support for Tegra 239 SoC, which has 8 cores in a single cluster, also moving non-clusters to SoC data to avoid over-allocating memory for 4 clusters always. This incident further corroborates reliable Nvidia leaker Kopite7Kimi's assertion that Nvidia will use a modified version of its T234 Orin chip for the next generation Switch. As of this leak, we now know the following details about the next Nintendo Switch console. T239 SoC info from leak above, 8-core CPU likely to be ARM Cortex A78C/A78 inferred from the above leak, Ampere-based GPU that may incorporate some Lovelace features. The second generation Nintendo Switch graphics API contains references to DLSS 2.2 and ray tracing support. Now, one major asterisk with this entire story that you do have to keep in mind when we're going down this rabbit hole is the fact that this does not necessarily confirm that this is indeed the chip for the Nintendo Switch 2, but rather people associating that due to previous claims in 2021 that this would be the chipset that is used in what is next for Nintendo's next hardware. But Nvidia has also used things like the Tegra X1 in their Nvidia Shield, which is essentially an Android device that can be plugged into a TV with Google TV and all that fun stuff. I actually own one. They're not bad emulation machines either, and they definitely have capacity to run a ton of retro games, so not a bad device, but it could be pointing towards something like that. However, I do think that where we are at in the Nintendo Switch's life cycle and these kind of red flags popping up online, in addition to things like Nvidia hiring for positions that mention game console focused projects that we've covered in the past on the channel, like, yes, there's a lot of stuff that points to Nvidia and Nintendo's relationship continuing into what is next for Nintendo Switch hardware, or Nintendo hardware rather, because we don't know if it'll be called Switch 2. We don't really know how Nintendo will approach this transition, because that is historically where they have had the most problems. After a very successful console iteration, they sometimes tend to fall flat on their face with what is next, at least from a sales perspective. So we have quotations and things said from Furukawa himself stating that they're taking it very seriously. At one point, it was thought they were worried about the concern to the next generation Switch. I don't believe that that's the correct translation, and it was found out that they just have high urgency around it and they're paying attention to it, which is a good sign because it means Nintendo is aware that this is something that they haven't navigated correctly in the past, and they need to not wait too long to put out something new, as when we hit that 100+ million units sold mark, you are ultimately going to start to see diminishing returns on who's a brand new Switch user. Have you already sold the Switch to many of the people who are willing to entertain buying one? And is it time to tap into that repeat buyer that would actually justify an upgrade of a current Nintendo Switch for something more powerful? And I think with games like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom launching next year, that is a time window that just logically makes sense. I think many people, whether you upgraded to the OLED or not, will be ready for something more powerful in docked performance, and launching it alongside of a marquee AAA title like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom that has had so much hype and love from Nintendo so far seems to be a great justification of people that may want the top tier experience for that Zelda game. 60 FPS and 4K resolution when docked could absolutely be a winning formula for Nintendo to start off the next phase of Nintendo hardware. And I just hope we are not talking about a Wii to Wii U scenario where we had 100+ million consoles sold on the Wii, then we went to the Wii U and it ultimately sold just over 13 million. Like, Nintendo has to navigate the waters right with this, and I do think you could blame a lot of that on marketing, as the average consumer didn't know that the Wii U was not just some kind of fancy tablet controller add-on to the Wii. So maybe something like a Switch 2 is too close to the current branding, but I also think that the Switch concept is so genius that they do have to stay the course with that hybrid formula, and you probably do want to put out something that is very similar to the current brand of Switches that are out there, but just market the fact that it is premium, it is for enthusiast level gamers that want to experience Switch games in the best possible way. And if that comes at something like a $400 price tag, or $450 even, I think Nintendo can justify that and add in one additional console to be sold alongside of the current consoles that we see in their lineup, maybe ultimately phasing out the base model Switch. And I think they can run with this formula for years to come. But that is my personal thoughts on this entire story. Clearly, we don't know at the end of the day what Nintendo is planning with new hardware until they officially reveal it. But I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, all your personal thoughts and speculation on what you think Nintendo has planned for the future versions of Nintendo Switch. Do you think that we do get another hybrid form factor console, and that is what this chipset is part of, and it comes out as soon as something like 2023 alongside of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom? Or do you think that whatever this chipset is much further off, maybe not till 2024 or 2025, and it may be something entirely different than the Switch family of systems that we see sold today, and Nintendo might justify a new console generation with an entirely new gimmick or idea like we've seen them historically do? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.